I used to think I could handle anything, that if I just pushed a little harder, smiled a little longer, stayed quiet a little more, everything would work out. My husband is in the military. He comes home twice a year if we're lucky. So for most of the time, it's just me. Me and two little hearts who need everything from me. Food, warmth, comfort, bedtime stories, and answers to questions I sometimes don't even have for myself. Ryder is 7. Lily just turned 3. They don't understand why Daddy can't tuck them in, but they've learned to stop asking, and I've learned to stop crying. At least during the day. At night, after washing the dishes, folding the laundry, and checking if the door's locked 3 times, I sometimes stand at the window and wonder if I'm doing enough. If I'm enough. Most days, I feel like I'm running a race I didn't sign up for, with no finish line in sight. So when my mother-in-law said she wanted to come visit the grandkids for a week, I thought, maybe this is help. Maybe, for once, I won't be alone in this house trying to hold everything together with duct tape and breathless prayers. I welcomed her in with clean sheets and warm tea. Big mistake. She arrived smiling, suitcase in hand, full of stories and perfume. Called the kids my angels. Said she missed them so much. Said she just wanted to spend time. But within 3 days, I started noticing things. She was never home. She'd leave in the morning, dress like she was going to a party, and come back at night with bags full of snacks she never shared, stories about women from her club, and gossip I didn't ask for. When she was home, she took naps. Loud ones. While I tiptoed around, trying not to wake her as I cleaned the bathroom floor with a toddler hanging off my back. But I said nothing. Because that's what we're taught, right? Keep the peace, respect your elders, be the good daughter-in-law. Even when she started calling me lazy for ordering dinner after a 12-hour shift. Even when she criticized how I talked to Lily, how I combed Ryder's hair, how I folded towels. Still, I bit my tongue. But the day I opened the drawer and realized the tuition envelope was empty, something in me snapped. It wasn't just money. It was months of saving, nights of skipping dinner, days of sewing old clothes instead of buying new ones. That envelope was hope, a future, and now it was gone. I tore through the house like a woman possessed. I thought maybe I'd misplaced it. Maybe I forgot. But no, I didn't forget. She took it. I found receipts, gambling credits on her phone. And when I confronted her, calmly, respectfully, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Oh, stop being so dramatic. It's just money. You'll earn more." That was the moment I realized. She didn't come to help. She came because she had nowhere else to go. Because she'd burned through everything, including the house her late husband left her. Because the world had told her she was entitled to be taken care of, no matter the cost, even if that cost was her grandchildren's future. And the worst part? I still didn't tell my husband, because I didn't want to be the wife who made him choose between his mother and his children. I didn't want to be that woman. But something had to give, and eventually, it did. She arrived with a smile and a suitcase, saying she only wanted to visit the grandkids for a few days. That's all. Just a quick visit to see the children she hadn't held in years. She brought them candy, kissed their foreheads, and told me to rest while she was around. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Because I was exhausted. Every bone in my body begged for help. Raising 2 kids mostly alone while my husband was stationed miles away wasn't just tiring. It was a kind of quiet drowning no one ever talked about. So yes, I was foolish enough to believe that for once I wouldn't have to do it all by myself. But the days went by, and her few days turned into a week, then 2, then 3. And with each passing day, something in the house began to shift. Something small at first, almost invisible, but unmistakably real. The kitchen, once warm and full of the smell of hurried dinners and giggles from the kids, started to feel cold, like no one cared anymore. My wallet, once carefully rationed with grocery list and school fees, grew thin, and worst of all, the laughter of my children started to fade. Ryder became quiet. Lily asked less questions. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down I knew I wasn't. Something was wrong. And then, one Thursday morning, I opened the small blue tin where I kept the tuition money for Ryder and Lily. It was always tucked beneath some folded clothes in my drawer. I hadn't touched it in weeks. I'd been building it slowly, sacrificing my own needs to ensure their future. But that morning, the tin was empty. Gone. Every last bill. For a second, I just stared, thinking I was losing my mind. I checked the laundry basket, the closet, even the fridge, thinking maybe I moved it while half asleep. But no, the money was gone. And so was something inside me.
I didn't want to believe she took it.
I didn't want to believe the woman who rocked my daughter to sleep 2 nights ago had the audacity to steal from her. But I couldn't ignore the signs. She had started disappearing during the day, saying she was going for walks or tea with the ladies at the club. She came home laughing about card games and winning streaks. She never offered to buy food or help with bills, and she never once lifted a finger in the house. My suspicion turned into truth when I checked her phone while she napped on the couch. Gambling receipts, money transfers, betting apps. There it was, laid bare like a knife in my chest. I sat down in the hallway, staring at my own reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked tired, not just from work or the kids, but from carrying a weight that wasn't mine to carry. That night, after the kids went to sleep, I confronted her. My voice shook, but my words were clear. "Did you take the tuition money?" She blinked, laughed, then said, "Oh, come on. Don't be so dramatic. You're young, you'll earn more. What's a little money to you?" That sentence, it burned like acid. I realized then she didn't see what the money represented. Not effort, not dreams, not futures. Just cash. Just convenience. Just something she could take. Because she could. And that's when I knew. She wasn't visiting. She was surviving off the crumbs of the life I was barely holding together. I walked away that night and cried in the bathroom, biting down on a towel so the kids wouldn't hear. Because the truth wasn't just that she stole from us. The truth was, I let her in. I believed the smile. I believed the lie. And now I had to figure out how to undo the damage without breaking everything I'd worked so hard to keep whole. I opened my wallet, empty. Not a coin, not a forgotten bill tucked away in the corner, just silence. Cold, paperless silence. My heart started racing, but I told myself maybe I put the money somewhere else. I rushed to the drawer in my bedroom where I kept the tuition envelope, our sacred little savings I'd built over months of skip lunches and late-night freelance work. I opened it, hands trembling. A few coins. That was all. No notes, no explanation, just a hollow envelope and a gut-deep panic I couldn't ignore. I tore through the house, checking every possible place I might have hidden the cash. Under the bed, behind the curtain rod, in the laundry basket, nothing. My mind raced. Had I forgotten? Had I somehow lost it? But no, I'm not that careless. Not when it comes to my kids' future, not when it comes to their education. And that's when the dread began to sharpen into something else. Suspicion. She had been going out a lot lately. Dressed up, cheerful, full of energy. Always returning with bags of food for herself, talking about some new tea place or a card game at the park. I had ignored it, chalking it up to harmless old lady socializing, but now, standing in the middle of my ransacked bedroom with my knees weak and my hands cold, it no longer felt harmless. It felt calculated. I needed answers. I went to the living room, where she was snoring lightly on the couch. Her phone was beside her, screen still lit. I picked it up, hesitated, then opened her recent apps. One click. That's all it took. Betting sites. Multiple gambling transactions. One deposit after another. The dates matched the days she was out. The amounts? Hundreds, maybe more. My fingers shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I backed away, numb. I had been working double shifts, skipping meals, crying in the shower so my children wouldn't hear, and she had been gambling away their future with the same hands she used to pat their heads at bedtime. I didn't even know how to react. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake her and demand answers, but all I could do was sit there, staring at the numbers on the screen like they were written in a language I had forgotten how to read. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal, the violation, the sheer audacity of it. She looked me in the eyes every day, ate the food I bought, slept under the roof I paid for, played with my children like she adored them. And all the while, she was stealing from them behind my back. Still, part of me wanted to believe there was some explanation. That maybe she had a plan to repay it. That maybe I had misunderstood something. But those thoughts were crushed the moment I spoke to the neighbor the next morning. I asked casually, cautiously, if they'd seen my mother-in-law around. The old woman across the hall gave me a look, half pity, half scorn. "Oh, honey," she said. "She brags about her past all the time. Said she sold her late husband's house, went on luxury tours, spa retreats, burned through every penny. Now she's just drifting between relatives. Said you were next in line." I froze. My mouth went dry. So this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern, a life strategy. She had used up her savings, spent her dead husband's legacy, and when the money dried up, she smiled her way into my home and started again. With us, with my children. That was the moment my heart turned cold, not with hatred, with clarity. Everything inside me clicked into place. The missing money, the laughter at night, the just a short visit lie. I knew now, this was no longer just about stolen tuition. This was about protecting my family from someone who saw them as a wallet, not a bloodline. And deep down, I feared, this was just the beginning. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat across from her in the living room. The TV was still on, playing some soap opera in the background, but I wasn't listening. My hands were clenched, heart pounding, but my voice, I kept it calm, steady. "Mom," I said, "I'm not here to fight. I'm just asking, can you please tell me what happened to Ryder and Lily's school money?" For a moment she didn't move, just stared at me. Then, as if I had flipped a hidden switch, she exploded. "What kind of question is that?" she snapped. "You think I took it? How dare you? I raised 3 children. I fed them, clothed them, wiped their butts. And now you're accusing me of stealing? From my own grandchildren?" Her voice was rising, and I could hear the kids stir in the other room. I tried to lower my tone. I'm not accusing, I'm asking. The money's gone. I've looked everywhere. There are gambling transactions on your phone, and I just need to know what happened. She stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor, her face turned red, eyes wide with fury. You ungrateful little thing. You think just because your husband is away you get to run this house like it's a business? Counting every penny like I'm some beggar? I'm your mother-in-law. I'm your elder. You should be giving me money, not interrogating me like some thief. Her words cut deep, but I didn't flinch, not this time. You're living in this house, eating our food, using our electricity, playing with the kids, and gambling with the money that was supposed to pay for their future. Do you even realize what you've done? I asked, my voice shaking but firm. She scoffed, actually scoffed. It's just money, she said. You're young, you'll make more. Don't be so dramatic. Behind her, I saw Ryder standing in the hallway, holding Lily's hand. He had that look, one I'd seen too often lately, where a child grows up too fast in a single night. My throat closed. I wanted to yell, I wanted to cry, but I couldn't, not in front of them. I turned away from her, walked into the bedroom and closed the door. I took out a pen and paper. I began writing down every expense since the day she arrived. Every missing bill, every grocery run, every unexplained withdrawal. I wasn't writing it for her. I was writing it for him, my husband. He deserved to see the truth without the noise, without the manipulation. And I needed a record, not just of what was taken, but of what I had endured. I waited. Every day after that conversation, I waited. I cooked, worked, cleaned, smiled for the children, but inside, I counted the days. Not until payday, not until the school term. I was counting the days until he came home, because only then could the real conversation begin. And deep inside, I already knew. Once the truth was on the table, nothing in this house would ever be the same again. He walked through the door thinner than I remembered, his eyes hollow with fatigue. But they lit up the moment Ryder and Lily ran into his arms. I stood there, frozen, between relief and dread. He was home after 10 months, and I hadn't even had time to breathe. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to tell him everything. But before I could speak, she stepped forward, with tears already welling in her eyes, tears I had seen before, used like a weapon. She treats me like a maid, she said, voice trembling with theatrical pain. She makes me eat instant noodles every day while she buys takeout for herself. She talks back, disrespects me. I don't even feel like a mother in this house anymore. Her voice cracked just enough to sound convincing. He blinked, looked at me, then at her. I could see the conflict rising in his chest, the instinct to defend her, the reflex he had been raised into. For a second, I braced myself for it, for the words that would cut me in half, for the cold shoulder. But he surprised me. Mom, he said, his voice low, steady, almost too calm. Let's have a family meeting. She blinked, thrown off. A what? He didn't look at her. He was looking at me now. We'll sit down, all of us. I want to understand what's been going on while I was gone. Later that night, the 4 of us sat at the table. The kids had already been tucked in. She sat across from me, arms folded, jaw tight. He placed a notebook on the table. Mine, the one where I had documented every incident, every date, every missing dollar, every overheard insult, every absence, every lie. Emma's been writing everything down, he said, because she knew this would happen, because she didn't want to accuse you without proof. Her eyes narrowed. Proof? You believe some list she made? You think I'm a criminal? I think, he said quietly, that my children almost lost their tuition money. I think my wife hasn't had a full night's sleep in months. And I think I've been too far away for too long. She stood up, arms shaking. So that's it. You're taking her side? No, he said. I'm taking responsibility. For the house, for the kids, for you. But this, what's happening here, it isn't working. She stared at him, stunned. For the first time since she arrived, she had no words, no accusations, just silence. He turned to me. I'm calling my brothers tomorrow. We'll figure out a solution. You're not alone anymore. And just like that, the air in the room changed. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the damage. But it was the first time I didn't feel invisible. The first time someone chose truth over comfort. The next day, he called his brothers. They came. We sat again, this time with voices lowered, with facts on the table. They didn't argue. They didn't deny. They knew her patterns too. And together they agreed she would go live with the eldest, where there would be supervision, where there would be boundaries, where she couldn't pretend anymore. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. She didn't look at the kids. But I didn't cry. I didn't chase. I closed the door gently, then leaned against it, and exhaled a breath I hadn't known I'd been holding for years. She sat on the couch like a queen wrongly accused, arms crossed, lips pursed, eyes scanning each of her 3 sons as if daring them to challenge her. I gave you all life, she said, her voice thick with wounded pride. I raised you, worked my hands to the bone, and now you sit here questioning me like I'm some thief in your house? Do you know how humiliating this is? Her voice cracked on that last word just enough to sound fragile, but no one moved. Not even her eldest son, especially not him. He was the one who pulled out the envelope, thick with old papers and clipped corners. He placed it quietly on the coffee table, slid it toward her. We're not questioning you, Mom, he said, voice steady without venom. We're showing you what we already know. She narrowed her eyes, but her fingers reached out anyway. She opened the envelope, pulled out the top sheet, and her hands froze. Her face drained of color. It was the deed to the house. Her late husband's house, the one she sold 4 years ago. The signature at the bottom was hers, bold, confident, final. You told everyone you lost it in a scam, he continued gently. That the bank tricked you, that Dad's legacy was stolen. But you sold it, willingly, cashed everything out, and went on cruises, spas, luxury tours. We kept quiet. We thought maybe you just needed that freedom. We thought maybe grief made you reckless. His voice trembled for the first time. But then you ran out of money. And instead of asking for help, you came here, into Emma's home, and started feeding off her kids. Her lips parted as if to protest, but no sound came out. Her second son, the quiet one, leaned forward. You didn't just overstay. You didn't just avoid helping. You took their tuition money. You gambled it. You laughed about it. Do you know what that did to Emma? What it did to your grandchildren? The silence in the room was suffocating. I sat there, hands clenched in my lap, heart pounding, unsure if I wanted to cry or scream or run. But I didn't move. I stayed, because for the first time, I wasn't the one fighting alone. The third son, the one she always said looked most like her, finally spoke. "Mom, this isn't about blame. This is about truth. We know what happened, and we're not going to let it happen again." Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "So what? You're throwing me out?" "No," said the eldest. "You're going to stay with me, where we can support you, but with boundaries. Emma's done enough. More than enough." She stood, shaking slightly, eyes darting between the 3 men she raised. And for the first time in years, she looked small. Not just physically, but spiritually. Her power had drained with the truth. She didn't speak another word. She just walked to her room and began to pack. When the door closed behind her the next morning, I sat at the edge of the couch and let myself cry. Not because I was sad, but because I was free. Because the weight I'd carried in silence had finally been named. And because I had finally been believed. 3 years passed. The house was quieter now, but in the best way. No more walking on eggshells, no more stolen glances or swallowed words. My husband had been transferred to a base just 30 minutes away, and for the first time in years we had dinner as a family. Every night. Ryder was thriving in school. Lily had started painting, leaving tiny canvases of sunflowers and cricket houses all over the apartment. I had opened a small flower shop downtown. Just a few arrangements a day, enough to pay the bills and fill my lungs with the scent of something that wasn't fear or resentment. Life had finally begun to feel like mine, until the letter came. It was a plain envelope, no return address. I recognized the handwriting instantly, slanted, messy, always a little angry looking even when it wasn't meant to be. My hands trembled before I even opened it. Inside, a single piece of paper, no greeting, no signature, just 12 words scrawled in ink that looked like it had been pressed too hard into the page. I was wrong, but I never learned how to say sorry. May I see Ryder and Lily just once? I read it 3 times, then a 4th. Then I folded it neatly and placed it on the kitchen counter like it might stop burning a hole in my chest if I left it alone long enough. But it didn't. I couldn't stop thinking about it, about her, about everything that had happened. The money, the lies, the cold silences, the tears I cried in the bathroom with the water running so no one would hear. But also, the way she used to braid Lily's hair, clumsy but gentle. The way Ryder used to make her laugh, even when she tried to hide it. I wasn't sure what I felt. Anger, pity, exhaustion, maybe all of it, or maybe none. I walked out to the back porch that night, the kids already asleep, my husband watching something quietly on the couch. I stared at the stars for a long time. The sky looked the same as it did on the night she left, wide and indifferent. That night, I had promised myself I would never let her back into my life, that forgiveness wasn't something people like her deserved, but now, I wasn't so sure. Not because I believed she had changed, not because the wounds were healed, but because I had. I had built a life out of the pieces she almost shattered. I had grown stronger, steadier, quieter, in the best kind of way, and maybe, just maybe, letting her see the kids one last time wasn't about her redemption. It was about mine. I went back inside, picked up a letter, and read it one final time. Then I wrote a reply. Just a few lines. Simple, honest, careful. I told her she could visit. 1 hour, supervised, no overnight stays, no promises, and no pretending that nothing had happened. I sealed it, walked it to the mailbox, and exhaled. I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it so I'd never become like her. So my kids would see what boundaries looked like, what strength looked like, what healing looked like. And somewhere deep inside me where it no longer hurt to breathe, I knew this was closure. Every morning now starts with the soft hum of sunlight spilling through our kitchen window and the faint sound of Lily humming while coloring at the table. The rush and chaos that used to define our mornings, burnt toast, mismatched socks, forgotten lunchboxes, have been replaced with something I once thought I'd never have: peace. Real peace. Not silence born from exhaustion or defeat, but the kind that comes when everything you fought for finally decides to stay. My husband is home, not just for a weekend, not counting down days until the next deployment. He was transferred to a base just 30 minutes away, and every evening he walks through the door like a man who finally belongs where he is. He takes off his boots, drops his bag, and scoops Lily up into his arms before she can even finish running to him. Ryder always pretends not to care, acting too cool now that he's in 5th grade, but I catch him watching from the corner of his eye, smiling just a little. I opened a flower shop last spring, just a modest space on the corner of a quiet street downtown, painted it warm cream and sage green, filled it with blooms I couldn't afford years ago: peonies, tulips, baby's breath, and roses in every shade you can imagine. I hired 2 young women, single mothers like I once was, who needed a second chance, or maybe just a place where someone believed in them. We laugh often, we cry sometimes, and we always leave a small bouquet on the counter at closing time, a silent thank you to whatever force in the universe kept us going. Ryder is getting taller by the day. He's thoughtful, careful, always asking questions that startle me with their depth. He knows how to wash his own dishes now. And every Saturday he makes pancakes for Lily and calls it Chef's Day. Lily, on the other hand, draws everything she sees: me cooking, her dad mowing the lawn, the stray cat that visits our porch. She gave me a painting last week. It was a picture of me, standing in front of my shop, holding a sunflower, with the words, "Mommy is always smiling," scrawled across the bottom in shaky, bright orange letters. I hung it right above the register. We still have hard days, of course. That's life. There are moments when the house is too loud, or the bills are too high, or someone forgets to buy milk. But it no longer feels like we're barely surviving. It feels like we're living. Like every scar we carry now glows a little in the light. Sometimes I sit on the back porch, cup of tea in hand, listening to my children's laughter echoing through the hallway, and I think, this is the life people write about in books. The kind I used to read and never quite believe in. The kind I used to think was only for other people. But now, somehow, it's mine. Not perfect, not polished, but real, full, and beautifully, fiercely ours. Sometimes the deepest pain doesn't come from betrayal by strangers, but from the people who once tucked you into bed, who once said they loved you unconditionally. It's a different kind of heartbreak, a quiet, slow burn that doesn't scream, but lingers in the corners of your heart, showing up in moments you least expect. You smile through it. You cook dinner. You go to work. You raise your children. But somewhere inside, a part of you aches for the version of them you believed in. You mourn the relationship you thought you had, the love you thought was mutual, the safety you assumed was real. And it hurts more because society tells you that family is everything. But what if the very people who gave you your last name are the ones who took away your peace? What if the ones who should have protected you were the ones who left you bleeding, emotionally, silently, for years? You start to question everything: your worth, your memories, your instincts. And yet, In the middle of that storm, you grow, not out of spite, but out of necessity. You learn to set boundaries, not because you want to punish them, but because you want to protect yourself. You learn to say no, even if your voice shakes. You stop watering relationships that only drown you. And one day, when the hurt no longer has claws, when the silence no longer feels like punishment, you consider something impossible: forgiveness. But not the kind that means forgetting, not the kind that opens the door again. Forgiveness, in its truest form, is choosing to let go of what poisons you, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because you deserve to breathe without bitterness. Because your children deserve a version of you that isn't haunted. Because your future deserves space, unburdened by your past. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's not an apology to the one who caused harm. It's a quiet revolution inside your soul. A declaration that says, "You will not define the rest of my life." And that's what healing is. Not erasing what happened, but finally being free from its power over you. So if you choose to forgive, do it for your own peace. Not for them, not for tradition, not because anyone told you to, but because you are finally ready to live light, live honest, and live whole.
Don't just watch, become part of the story. Subscribe, like, and comment to join Whispered Lives channel, your gateway to soulful, AI-crafted storytelling. Thank you.